Hey everyone, welcome back to Overtime Insights. Now before I get into this video, I wanted to say thank you to those who have watched my video on the NHL prison game in 1954. It means so much to me that you have watched that video, and to everyone who have commented, thank you again for all the feedback you have given me. It really has made my day and week to hear from you, and I try to respond to them as quickly as possible. If I haven't, I will soon. Also, if you haven't watched that video, there will be a link to the video at the end of the episode. So thank you again. Now let's get into the video. So this player's life story reads like a tragic screenplay marked by extraordinary highs, devastating lows, and a shocking conclusion that came just as redemption seemed possible. The Canadian hockey player's journey from promising NHL prospect to troubled ex-athlete represents one of the sport's most touching cautionary tales encompassing family tragedy, professional success, and ultimately a violent death that mirrored the trauma that had shaped his life decades earlier. This is the story of Brian Spinner Spencer. Brian Roy Spinner Spencer was born on September 3, 1949, in Fort St. James, British Columbia, Canada, where he developed his hockey skills before catching the attention of professional scouts. Standing 5 feet 11 inches tall and weighing 185 pounds, Spencer was known for his aggressive playing style and left-handed shot that would become his trademark during his professional career. His path to the NHL began when he was drafted 55th overall by the Toronto Maple Leafs in the 1969 NHL Amateur Draft, marking the beginning of what would be a decade-long career in professional hockey. Before reaching the NHL, Spencer played junior hockey with teams including the Regina Pats, Calgary Sentinels, and Swift Current Broncos in the Western Canada Junior Hockey League, developing the physical, aggressive style that would define his professional career. During the 1968-69 season with the Swift Current Broncos, Spencer demonstrated his dual threat capabilities by recording 48 points in 53 games, while also accumulating 120 penalty minutes, showcasing both his offensive potential and physical presence on the ice. Spencer received his first invitation to the Maple Leafs training camp in 1969, but didn't make the final cut, instead being assigned to their farm team in Tulsa, where he continued to develop his skills against professional competition. While playing for the Tulsa Oilers in the Central Hockey League during the 1969-1970 season, Spencer registered 32 points in 66 games while amassing 186 penalty minutes, a statistical line that reflected his developing reputation as a hard-nosed player who could contribute offensively when called upon. His first recall to the Maple Leafs came on December 9, 1969, though he didn't play in that game and had to wait until March 14, 1970 before making his official NHL debut and beginning his journey as a professional hockey player. This initial taste of NHL action would be followed by stints back in the minor leagues as Spencer worked to establish himself as a full-time NHL player, a goal he would eventually achieve through persistence and his trademark aggressive style of play. Now, as a parent of a professional athlete, your goal is to either see them play their first professional game live or to be able to see it on national TV, and that was the case of Roy Spencer. On December 12, 1970, when what should have been one of the proudest moments for the Spencer family instead became one of the imaginable horror. On that fateful day, Spencer was called up to play with the Toronto Maple Leafs in what would have been his first nationally televised NHL game, a momentous occasion for any young hockey player. Excited about this milestone, Spencer telephoned his father, Roy, in British Columbia to tell him to watch the game that night on Hockey Night in Canada, adding that he would be interviewed between periods of the broadcast. Roy Spencer, who had recently purchased his first black and white television specifically to watch his son play in the NHL, was eagerly anticipating this proud parental moment. However, when the broadcast began, a devastating disappointment awaited the elder Spencer. Instead of showing the Toronto Maple Leafs game against the Chicago Blackhawks, as expected, the CBC affiliate near the family's Fort St. James home was airing a game between the Vancouver Canucks and the California Golden Seals. This programming decision, likely made because of regional broadcasting policies, sent Roy Spencer into a rage that would have fatal consequences. Infuriated by the station's decision, Roy Spencer drove 135 kilometers, which is 84 miles for us American folks, to Prince George, where the closest CBC television station, CKPG-TV, was located, determined to see his son play. Upon arrival at the station, Roy took extreme and desperate measures, ordering station staff at gunpoint to broadcast the Maple Leafs game instead of the Canucks game they had scheduled. When the station complied with Roy's demands, the situation quickly escalated when law enforcement became involved. As Roy Spencer was leaving the television station, he was confronted by officers of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, leading to a brief but fatal standoff. During this confrontation, Roy Spencer was shot and killed at the age of 57, transforming what should have been a celebratory night for the Spencer family into an unthinkable tragedy. The shooting occurred when Brian was with the Maple Leafs, completely unaware of the dramatic and deadly events unfolding thousands of miles away involving his father. The day after his father's shooting, Brian Spencer demonstrated remarkable strength of character when Toronto Maple Leafs general manager Jim Gregory approached the young player and offered to arrange immediate transportation home if he wished to be with his family. In a decision that revealed much about his character and his understanding of his father's wishes, Spencer chose to remain with the team and play in a scheduled game against the Buffalo Sabres that night. When explaining his decision, Spencer said, "My father wanted me to be a hockey player, more than he wanted anything else in the world. I think he would want me to play, and that's what I'm going to do." A statement that demonstrated both his profound grief and his determination to honor his father's memory through his performance on the ice. Despite carrying the weight of his father's violent death, Spencer played an exceptional game against Buffalo that night, notching 2 first-period assists and goals by Norm Ullman and Ron Ellis, and even engaging in a fight with Sabres defenseman Tracy Pratt, displaying the combination of skill and toughness that would become his hallmark. His performance was so impressive that legendary broadcaster Forrest Hewitt selected Spencer as the game's third star, with Maple Leafs figure King Clancy rated Spencer's performance second only to Norm Ullman's 3.9. Remarkable achievements given the emotional burden Spencer was carrying. This game perhaps best exemplifies Spencer's approach to hockey and life, pushing through adversity with determination and grit, traits that would serve him well throughout his NHL career, but couldn't fully heal the psychological wounds inflicted by his father's tragic death. During his time with the Maple Leafs, Spencer appeared in 95 regular season games spread across parts of 3 seasons, establishing himself as a hard-working, physical player who could contribute offensively when called upon. His tenure in Toronto was interspersed with assignments to the Tulsa Oilers of the Central Hockey League, where he continued to refine his skills while waiting for permanent NHL opportunities. Spencer's time with the Maple Leafs would come to an end in 1972, but his NHL journey was only beginning, as his combination of tenacity and versatility would make him a valuable asset to several other teams in the coming years. When the NHL expanded to the summer of 1972, adding franchises in Atlanta and Long Island, New York, the Toronto Maple Leafs left Spencer unprotected, allowing the fledgling New York Islanders to claim him in the expansion draft on June 6, 1972. Spencer thus became part of the original Islanders team, one that would struggle mightily in his inaugural season, posting a dismal record of 12-60-6 for a .192 winning percentage, making them one of the worst teams in NHL history. Despite the team's collective struggles, Spencer enjoyed his most productive offensive season to that point, scoring 14 goals and adding 24 assists for 38 points in 78 games, finishing as the 4th highest scorer on that team behind Billy Harris, Ed Westfall, and Jermaine Gagnon. After playing 2 seasons with the Islanders, Spencer's time on Long Island came to an end when he was traded to the Buffalo Sabres on March 10, 1974, in exchange for Doug Rombough, beginning what would be the most successful phase of his NHL career. It was during his time in Buffalo that Spencer reached his peak as an NHL player, recording his best offensive season in 1974-75 when he tallied 12 goals and 29 assists for 41 points, while playing a key role on a strong Sabres team. Beyond his statistical contributions, Spencer became extremely popular with the fans at Buffalo's Memorial Auditorium, who appreciated his hustle, aggressive play, and hitting ability, qualities that endeared him to the blue-collar Buffalo fan base. During his Buffalo years, Spencer developed into a solid two-way player who could be relied upon in various situations, from penalty killing to providing occasional offensive spark. His versatility and work ethic made him a valuable member of the Sabres roster for several seasons, during which time he became one of the team's most recognizable and beloved players. However, as is often the case in professional sports, Spencer's time in Buffalo eventually came to an end when he was traded to the Pittsburgh Penguins on September 20th, 1977 in exchange for Rob Shoak, beginning his final chapter of the NHL. With the Penguins, Spencer's role evolved as his offensive production declined, and he transitioned into more of a checking forward, focused on defensive responsibilities rather than scoring. The career phase reflected both the natural evolution of an aging player and the changing needs of his team, with Spencer's adapting his game accordingly. Spencer's last NHL season came in 1978-79 when he appeared in just 7 games for Pittsburgh before being sent down to the American Hockey League, signaling the beginning of the end of his time in the NHL. His professional playing career concluded with stints in the AHL with the Binghamton Dusters, Springfield Indians, and Hershey Bears, before he finally retired from professional hockey in 1980 after a decade in the sport. Throughout his 10-season NHL career, Brian Spencer appeared in 553 regular season games, scoring 80 goals and adding 143 assists for a total of 223 points. Respectable numbers for a player primarily valued for his physicality and defensive abilities. He also accumulated 634 penalty minutes during his NHL tenure, a reflection of his willingness to play a physical, confrontational style that often led to fighting majors and other infractions. In playoff action, Spencer appeared in 37 games, contributing modestly with 1 goal and 5 assists for 6 points, along with 29 penalty minutes. While Spencer's statistical legacy may not place him among the NHL's elite offensive talents, his impact went beyond numbers, particularly during his years with the Buffalo Sabres, where he became a fan favorite, known for his relentless work ethic and physical play. His willingness to sacrifice his body, deliver punishing checks, and stand up for teammates made him a valuable component of each team he played for, earning him respect throughout the league despite the limited scoring touch. In an era of hockey that valued toughness and physical play, Spencer carved out a successful career by embracing these aspects of this game while still contributing enough offensively to maintain his roster spot. Looking at the career trajectory, Spencer's time in Buffalo stands out as his professional peak, where he found the perfect balance between offensive contribution and the physical play that defined his style. During the 1974-75, 1975-76, and 76-77 seasons with the Sabres, Spencer recorded point totals of 41, 39, and 29, respectively, establishing himself as a reliable secondary scoring option while maintaining his physical edge. His combined statistics from these 3 seasons, 39 goals, 70 assists for 109 points in 227 games, represent nearly half of his NHL production and coincide with his greatest team success and fan popularity. Now, when athletes retire from their professional sports, they would like to see light and some good to happen after they play their professional sports. But that didn't happen with Brian Spencer. When Brian Spencer hung up his skates after the 1979-1980 hockey season, the abrupt end to his decade-long NHL career triggered an immediate collapse in his personal life. Having spent his final professional years bouncing between minor league teams, including the Binghamton Dusters, Springfield Indians, and Hershey Bears, Spencer found himself facing a future without the structure, purpose, and identity that professional hockey had provided since his youth. Their transition proved immediate and jarring as his second marriage disintegrated almost simultaneously with his retirement announcement. According to accounts, Spencer's wife was brutally honest about her reasons for leaving. The glamour and financial benefits of being married to a professional athlete had disappeared, and with them, her interest in the relationship. As one account painfully described it, upon announcing to his wife that he was hanging it up, she immediately left him to dry. She was excruciatingly forthright in letting Spencer know the reasons for the split. Goodbye to the money and glamour of being married to the big leaguer. This personal rejection compounded the professional loss Spencer was already experiencing, leaving him adrift and alone at a critical juncture. Spencer himself seemed to recognize the stigma attached to a career that had ended, reflecting once that even Gordie Howe at 52 was seen as a failure. The psychological impact of no longer being a professional athlete, particularly for someone whose father had pushed him toward hockey success from childhood, created a void that Spencer would struggle to fill in constructive ways. In his own words, Spencer had loved to travel, the people, I loved it all. But when his career ended, he wanted to leave it behind. The game, the people, and in the end, leaving was failure. Following his retirement and marital breakdown, Spencer relocated to Florida in search of a fresh start. There he attempted to leverage the mechanical skills of his father he had taught him decades earlier, finding employment as a mechanic for an electrical contracting company called Fishbach and More. According to friends, this work provided Spencer with some degree of satisfaction and purpose. As friend Dan Martinetti observed, he used to talk about playing, but he loved working with his hands, fixing equipment, more than hockey. He went from nothing to having everything, and then he went back to chopped bologna. This observation hints at Spencer's complicated relationship with his post-hockey identity. While he found meaning in mechanical work, the stark contrast between his former life as an NHL player and his new existence working as a mechanic in Florida represented a profound shift in status and lifestyle. Martinetti further noted that Spencer didn't care about money. You could give him $100,000, he'd look at it and then go spend it on tools and equipment. This suggests that Spencer was trying to find fulfillment in his mechanical abilities rather than chasing the financial rewards and recognition that had accompanied his hockey career. While working as a mechanic gave Spencer some stability, the move to Florida also exposed him to influences and temptations that would ultimately contribute to his downfall. According to reports, Spencer fell into the wrong kind of crowd in Florida, involving with drugs and crime to make ends meet and numb his troubles. The geographic and social displacement from the structured world of professional hockey proved to be a dangerous combination for someone with Spencer's vulnerabilities. Spencer's post-hockey years were marked by escalating substance abuse issues that frequently brought him into conflict with the law. Like his father before him, Spencer developed serious problems with alcohol, which later expanded to including crack cocaine. Between 1982 and 1985, he was arrested for driving under the influence of alcohol 5 times, accumulating 18 demerit points on his license. These repeated offenses eventually resulted in a 10-day jail sentence in 1985 and a 5-year suspension of his driver's license. His substance abuse problems worsened as his post-hockey years progressed. One account notes that, much like his father, Spencer's taste for alcohol would become problematic and he would soon develop a taste of crack cocaine. This descent into addiction reflected both genetic predisposition and the difficulty Spencer faced in adjusting to life after hockey. Without the structure and purpose that professional sports had provided, Spencer turned into substances to fill the void, creating a destructive cycle that grew increasingly difficult to escape. During this period, Spencer also became involved in a relationship with a woman named Diane DeLena, who worked as a prostitute for an escort service. This relationship would prove to be particularly problematic, with one source noting that his relationship with her would turn out to be his downfall. While Spencer reportedly was never happy with this arrangement, the relationship nonetheless deepened his connection to a criminal underworld far removed from his former life as a professional athlete. The nadir of Spencer's post-hockey troubles came in 1987, when he was charged with kidnapping and murder in Florida, serious allegations that carried the potential penalty of death if he were convicted. The case stemmed from accusations made by Delena after the couple had a falling out. She alleged that Spencer had committed a 1982 murder of a Palm Beach Gardens restaurateur during a drug deal gone wrong. The murder charges represented a shocking fall from grace from the former NHL player and garnered significant media attention. During this difficult period, Spencer received support from some former teammates, including Rick Martin of the Buffalo Sabres, who testified as a character witness at his trial. This support shows from his hockey connections demonstrated that despite Spencer's attempts to leave that world behind, the relationships formed during his playing days still proved valuable in his time of greatest need. After a lengthy legal process lasting approximately 10 months, in March 1988, a jury returned a not guilty verdict on all charges, acquitting Spencer. The prosecution's case had apparently hinged largely on Delena's testimony, and without it, they struggled to build a compelling case. One report notes that Burton gave her no choice: testify against Spencer or go to jail. But by testifying, her husband would see what she had done in her former life, and that union would be destroyed. But for the prosecutor, she was all he had. Following his acquittal, Spencer reportedly vowed to change his life around, expressing a desire to move past the troubles that had plagued him since retiring from hockey and recapture some semblance of the stability and purpose he had known during his playing career. This period of relief and potential rebirth would prove tragically short-lived. The prolonged legal battle left Spencer in dire financial straits, forcing him to resort to increasingly desperate measures to survive. One account reports that after his trial, Spencer stooped low in attempts for street survival with little to no income. As everyone knew him as a former NHL player, he picked up quick cash by forging Bobby Orr's signature onto hockey memorabilia. This forgery scheme represented a sad irony. Spencer was leveraging his connection to hockey, the very world he had tried to leave behind, to maintain a precarious subsistence. Former teammate and friend Jerry Hart had attempted to help Spencer rebuild his life, even arranging employment opportunities for him back on Long Island. However, these efforts ultimately proved unsuccessful. Hart later recalled, "He ended up running away and back to Florida. I was very disappointed in Brian. I felt I'd done everything I could to support him, and when he abandoned his family like that, for whatever reason, and I was never able to find out, I washed my hands of Brian." This failed attempt at rehabilitation highlights the deep-seated issues that continue to plague Spencer, rendering him unable to grasp opportunities for stability even when presented by well-meaning friends. Just 3 months after his acquittal and apparent chance at redemption, Brian Spencer's life came to a violent end in circumstances eerily reminiscent of his father's death, nearly 2 decades earlier. On June 3, 1988, Spencer and his friend Gregory Scott Cook were in Riviera Beach, Florida, when tragedy struck. According to multiple accounts, the two men had been to bars in the Singer Island area, subsequently purchased crack cocaine, and stopped in Cook's pickup truck at an area in Riviera Beach. While they were parked, an armed man approached their vehicle demanding money. Cook handed over his last $3, but Spencer reportedly refused, saying he had no money to give. The assailant then fired, hitting Spencer with a fatal bullet. After the shooting, Cook tried to get Spencer help by driving to the nearby fire station, but Spencer was pronounced dead on arrival at St. Mary's Hospital in West Palm Beach. 2 men were eventually charged with Spencer's murder: Larry Willie Johnson, who received a 40-year prison sentence, and Leon Daniels, who was sentenced to 18 years. Spencer was just 38 years old when he died, survived by his twin brother Brian, his mother Irene, 2 ex-wives, Linda and Janet, and 5 children from his marriages. The tragic circumstances of Spencer's death, shot during a robbery after purchasing crack cocaine, represented a stark contrast to his former life as an NHL player, adored by fans, particularly in Buffalo, where his hustle and physical play had made him a fan favorite. Moreover, the violent manner of his death created a haunting parallel to the shooting death of his father, Roy, who had been killed by police in 1970, after holding a television station at gunpoint in an attempt to watch his son play hockey on national television. Brian Spencer's post-hockey life stands as a sobering cautionary tale about the challenges athletes face when transitioning from professional sports to civilian life, particularly when that transition is complicated by pre-existing personal issues, trauma, and substance abuse problems. The stark contrast between his decade as an NHL player, during which he appeared in 553 games, scored 80 goals, and accumulated 634 penalty minutes, and his troubled 8 years after retirement, illustrates how quickly an athlete's life can unravel without the structure and purpose provided by professional sports. In the years following his death, Spencer's dramatic life story has been preserved through various media, most notably in Martin O'Malley's book, Gross Misconduct: The Life of Spinner Spencer, which chronicles his journey from promising hockey player to troubled ex-athlete. This book was later adapted into a made-for-television movie directed by renowned filmmaker Adam Agnon, bringing Spencer's tragic story to a wider audience. Spencer's former teammate Jim McKenney once told him he thought he was the only bad person in hockey. He felt he was the only person who failed. But I told him there were 200 other guys who messed up worse than he thought he had. I told him he shouldn't feel guilty. It's really tough to reestablish yourself after hockey. He wasn't all alone. He was surprised people still cared about him. He thought he was the scum of the earth. The observation highlights the isolation and self-loathing that characterized Spencer's post-hockey existence, feelings that ultimately contribute to the destructive behaviors that led to his premature death. Today, Brian Spencer is remembered not only for his contributions on the ice, but also as an example of how trauma, combined with the challenges of post-athletic life, can lead to devastating outcomes, even for those who once enjoyed the spotlight of professional sports. His story serves as a reminder of the importance of supporting athletes through the difficult transition of post-playing careers and addressing the underlying issues that can emerge when the cheering stops and the athletes must forge a new identity beyond the playing field. This story was really interesting to read up on, and seeing him as just the athlete alone, just as a hockey player, he was someone that I would root for if had he been on my team. So I could see a city like Buffalo getting behind this guy because he's exactly the type of player Buffalo loves, and it's heartbreaking when ex-teammates try to help him. But with all the deep issues he had, it's hard to come back to, and you can only do so much. And unfortunately, his life ended after a drug deal. And that's it for the story of Brian Spencer. What do you think about this story? Do you think leagues like the NHL do enough for players after they retire, making sure they're well off? Not just financially, but mentally. Like they said, without structure, players do struggle post-retirement. Let me know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this, and I'll see you next time in Overtime.